So far, we have already done the loading for these tables. So load product type and the remaining tables. We have also loaded the batch file. So we'll start with working on the fact table loading. So right now, I will go to my database and see if we have any data in these tables. No, we don't have it. So before the fact table loading, we need to make sure these tables have the data, except the fact table because that's the one we are going to load next. So I will go to my Visual Studio. I have all these tables. I'll start loading. Okay, so it seems the data has loaded successfully in all the tables. So I'm going to go back to my SQL query, just execute the select statements and not the delete. Just my select statements, and let's check. So the fact table doesn't have data, but remaining all the tables do have the data. This time we are not going to delete it. We will let these data be in these tables. Now let's go ahead and work with the Visual Studio. So first of all, I'll stop debugging using this red button on the top. Okay, now what I'm going to do is, let's see what we need to do. So first of all, I am going to make sure that all the connections that we have, such as the batch CSV connection, the accounting DB connection, as well as the data warehouse connection, all of these three connections, I am going to change them to the project connection. So first of all, I'll click on the connection manager and I have all three connections. I'm going to click on the first one, the batch CSV, right click on it actually, and convert to project connection. This one is done. So I'll do the same thing to the remaining two. Right click, convert to project connection. It says this one failed because this is not a valid stream name in the project. So maybe I would need to rename something here. So let me do that real quick. Now, I did the same thing for the data warehouse connection as well as the accounting DB connection. In my case, the name of both of these were really long and it was giving me an error. So I right clicked on it and said rename, gave these a shorter name. So just Agarwal underscore DW. It was really long network path. So I did that. And after that, once I had renamed it, I went ahead, right clicked and converted this to a project connection. So I did the same thing for the accounting DB, first renamed to a shorter name and then converted it to a project connection. Now you can see on my right hand side, I have under connection managers, I have three connections and all of these are project connections. So the next thing we need to do is go ahead and save this as a new package. So now I'm going to my SSIS package. I'm going to rename the previous one, which we had as dim package. And then for this one, I'm going to right click on it and say new package. So right click and rename this one as fact package. Okay, so that's done. Now there are unsaved changes. Yeah, let's go ahead and do you want to reload it and lose the changes that has made? Yeah, we can say yes to all. Okay, now I need to make some changes in the batch CSV. So I'm going to click on the connection manager and either I can double click or go to right click and edit. And once this option's open, last time when we loaded it, we only took the fields that were needed for us. Anything that was not needed at the time, we didn't change. So now I need to go to the advanced field and you will notice that all of these fields need to be, except the time started and time stopped, the remaining field need to be a 4-byte signed integer. So we need to confirm if that is the case. If not, we'll have to change the data type. So for the first three, we have 4-byte signed integer. Let's look at the number produced. 4-byte signed integer, number rejected, 4-byte signed integer. It's good. For time started and time stopped, it needs to be database timestamp, which is great. Time stopped, database timestamp, good. If this was not the case, then you needed to change these to these particular data types. Then I'm going to just go to column and look at my data and make sure it looks good. Now I can hit OK. Now I'll also go to the load batch file and make sure that everything looks good here. So I'm going to edit this one, and I'm going to the connection here, double click, and columns, and we need to make sure that everything looks like matching correctly. So timestamp, number of produced, okay, looks good. So I'm just going to hit OK. I can go back to control flow on this one. Now I'm going to the fact package, and this is a blank canvas. We need to start a new data flow task. So I'm bringing a new data flow task here. This one I am renaming as load the fact table. So load fact table. And let's go ahead, double click on this, and we'll start the source and destination and things like that. So for the fact table, our source is the CSV file, the batch file. So we will go all the way down to other sources and get a flat file source. I'm going to rename this as batch CSV. Okay. And if you double click this, since we already created the product connection, it should be available here. The project connection is here. Let's go ahead, and you can also look at the columns just to verify that all the columns are here. And let's hit OK again. So that's that. The next thing we need to do is, from all the same columns that we have taken, we are going to calculate some derived columns. So for that, you will go to derived columns and grab one instance here, derived column, and we are going to join these two. So get the blue arrow and connect these two. So let me go back to the database and show you what exactly we are trying to do here. So in my database, we do have this database diagram. So in the fact table, there are 3 columns: date of manufacture, elapsed time for manufacture, and accepted products, which we need to calculate based on the data that is given in the batch file. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to the batch file, and let me show you the columns. First of all, you can see that there is a number of produced, and then you see there is number of rejected. So if you subtract produced minus rejected, basically you will get how many were accepted. So now we will modify the derived column and add the derived columns that we want to add here. Double clicking. And once this opens, I'm going to write the first column that we want to create is called number accepted. So I'm going to go ahead and type it. To calculate this, we will add this as a new column, and the expression we will use is simply number of produced. So number produced, drag it here, and space minus space, number rejected, drag this one here, and the data type by itself comes out to be 4-byte signed string. sorry, 4 byte sign integer. So that's correct. Now, we also need to calculate two other columns. So let's talk about them. The first one is elapsed time of manufacture. Okay. To calculate this, again, this is going to be a new column. To calculate this, we are going to use another expression. This expression will need some formatting. So what we are going to do is, we are going to do time started and time stopped, but we will use some functions here. So the first one that we are going to use is dt numeric. It's a typecast. So let's go ahead and search for it. dt numeric, precision and scale. That's the one. So first transformation basically that we are doing is dt numeric. For precision, I'm going to type 6 here. And for scale, I'm going to type 2. So basically make sure that after everything we do, the elapsed time is calculated as a numeric field. And the next transformation or function I'm going to use is a date difference. I'm using a date difference to calculate the difference in time started and time stopped. So let's look at date difference. That may be a date time function. So let's look under this. Here's my date difference. So let's drag this one right after the first one, and it says date difference date part. It means what part of the date do we want? We want the minute part of the date. So I'm going to use double quotes, MI, double quotes, and then my start date is actually going to be time started column. So I'm going to delete this and get the time started as my start. Make sure we position it correctly. The next field is end date, which in this case is going to be time stopped. So let's go ahead and drag that one here right after comma and before the parentheses. So that's times done. Let's see. In the end, the output is going to be a numeric field. So that seems correct. Let's do a third field. This third field is date of manufacture. So let's go ahead, type that, date of manufacture. For this field, again, we are going to do some transformation. And the transformation in this case is that this is going to be a timestamp. So once again, I'm going to do a typecast, and this time I'm looking for dt underscore db timestamp. So let's go look for this timestamp. That's the one I want, not timestamp 2, but just dt underscore db timestamp. Let's go ahead and use that one. So my end result is going to be a timestamp. After that, I need to take the time started and then take substring of it. It means we don't want the entire time. We just want the date part of that time. So I will use a function called a substring function, and this will be found in the string functions here. Let's look for substring. Here it is, substring function. Let's drag this one to our expression. So substring function needs us to give character expression. First thing it needs is character expression. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to use another thing in here in substring. This is going to be dt underscore wstr. So let's look for that typecast, dt underscore. So I'm gonna look for dt underscore wstr length. So that's my first argument that I want within the substring. Now in substring, the first value we have here, the first expression is dt wstr 25. Basically, this is for converting the timestamp to a string, and then we say the timestamp is basically 25 characters. So first we convert the timestamp to a string, then take substring out of it, and then convert it back to a timestamp. So for the character expression, I have entered time started by dragging it from here. And then finally, for length and the start, we have 1 and 10. So 1 is the start, 10 is the length. I would close the parentheses. And here we have the data type is coming out to be, the output data type is going to be database timestamp. So that works. Now I can go ahead and hit enter. And if you need to check any of these again, let's see, you should be able to see it here. And the same expressions are also in your assignment sheet. So let's go ahead, hit OK. So we have done the derived columns.